morning, everybody. So today I'm going to take up this topic on pattern recognition questions. Why this topic is because most of the time students don't struggle with pattern questions, but what they struggle with is what to look at in those questions, what exactly to look for in those patterns. Now, when that shifts of what to look at that point in time, everything becomes simpler. We'll take a few examples in today's session to actually get this point. So let's begin with. To start with this, you are shown here a tire tread mark. Choose the correct cross section or sections that correspond to the same tread mark. All cross sections are perpendicular to the tire. One or more options are correct in this question. Right? Now, when we look at this question at first glance, the mind starts visualizing it in the 3D form of a tire. But actually, these are the tire tread marks that are marked on the floor when the tire is run over it. So that way is relatively simpler. Now, what is given in the option? In the option, what you're provided are cross sections of the tire. Various cross sections of the tires are provided. So when I look at option A, what it gives me is we are looking for a cross section where there is a smaller cross section, a longer cross section, and another smaller cross section. That's what we are looking at. Now, where do we find that? So one possible place that one can see that kind of a cross section happening is somewhere here. Okay, where in this cross section, what you see is basically a smaller cross section here, a longer cross section, and a smaller cross section here. Okay, which is very similar to what we are given in the question figure. All right, so yes, you're right, option A is correct. Next, we move to an option B, where what we are given here is two smaller cross section on two sides and then two medium sized cross section on in between. If I start laying my lines at any point in time, we don't get two parts in between or two smaller parts on the side, so B is wrong. We go to option C. With case of option C, what we get is a cross section here, a smaller cross section here, a medium sized cross section here, and a medium sized cross section here. Now, where do we find that? That kind of a cross section is found somewhere here. This is the place where we find that cross section. Okay, empty, one medium, and a tiny one at the end. Next is option D. In case of option D, where do I get that kind of a cross section is also somewhere here, where I start off with a white part, then a black part, a white space in between, and then finally the thick black part at the end. So yes, you're right to say both the options C and D are also correct. So the correct answer here are A, C, and D. All right. So, and very important takeaway that comes from my mind here is more than that, like I've been telling you, it is actually important to what to look at. So here it was very simple for me to start looking at the weights of these blocks that are happening. And that's what I did with these, looking at the tire tread marks and at what point in time in the slice do I get the exact same width thicknesses. All right, we'll move to the next one now. Here you are given different parts. The figure 1 is an E-shaped block. And what we have to identify is we have to identify the option that can be assembled to form the figure 1. Right? Now, at one glance, yeah, you may feel that one or more options are correct, but no, not in this case. In this case, only one answer is correct. And you may find a lot of colors coming in. You may find, okay, your first instinct may say maybe option A is right. But what if I say maybe that's too obvious to start with? And maybe that is something like a trap option also. Why? Because if I divide E into the modules that option A has, which is 1 and 2 module here, and then I start counting how many modules does E have in total to match with what is there in option A, I'll find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 modules, and then one module has 2 parts, which means 8. If we go by this module shape, it has to have 16 modules of the size that are given in A, versus in A there are only 15 modules, so that is wrong. In this case, the evidently wrong option given here is, of course, the option B, because if you look at the parts that are given, they are not sufficient enough to join together to form the complete complete figure 1. So B is wrong. Next, we look at the option D and C. All right, let's start with D first. In option D, one may find that, yeah, that is probably correct. And then how it is correct also, let me tell you why it feels correct also. And it's also a trick option. Let me put it out. Like if I divide E in these parts, like I've drawn here, and then I divide those L's that are given here like this, I will get those 4 parts that are there here and here. But what happens is in this part which is missing, that is comprised of 2 squares, versus the given option with D comprises of 1 full square and a half square. So that is wrong. So the leftover option is option C, which is the right answer, and I will also show you how it is the right answer. So these are all the parts of option C that we find in the figure 1. So this part, one part is here. This is the second part. This is the third part. This is the second part. This is the third part. This is the fourth part, and this is the fifth part. So C has all these parts that are there in the question figure. All right. So yeah, so correct answer here is option C. Nothing fancy. All right. Yes, but tricky. Option A and D did force you to think that what if there are more options correct? Because both A and D look fine. They're correct. But, instead of roaming around and looking at all the parts together, clarity actually came in to the part when you started breaking the whole figure 1 into individual parts. We started with first option, then we moved to the next, which obviously looked wrong. Then we moved to option D, which again looked similar to how we were looking option A, but it came out to be wrong. And then we ultimately were left with option C, and then we started constructing it. And then we started with this benefit to giving C the benefit of doubt and saying that what if it is correct? How do we construct those parts and get it together? And at that point in time, things started coming together. Things started fitting in well. So, clarity at any point in time actually comes to you when you stop looking at things together. Yeah? All right. Now, I'm going to pause a bit because if you like the direction in which we are taking up, the explanation that we are trying to build up to explain these questions, do like and subscribe our channel, guys. Thank you. We'll now move ahead now. All right. Yeah. So the next question, 3. It's an assembly question. This is figure 1. This is figure 2. When both figure 1 and 2 come together, what is the third figure that is formed? It's an assembly question. We don't have to rotate it. We don't have to flip it. We just have to add the figures 1 and 2. Okay. Now, where do we start with? It's complex. Do you literally start constructing the addition part by part by part, taking grade 1 grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade? No, you don't. You don't have time in the exams. Clock is ticking at that point in time. What we do, and it's actually pretty simple. What we do is we start by looking at the options. In the option, many a times, because it's MCQ, in the option there lies the clues in the options. The clues are not in the question figure many a times, it's in the options that are provided to you. So, when you look at all the 4 options together, we try to look for differences that are there between the question figures. So, for example, like when I say differences, what am I talking about? For example, look at this part. Yeah, look at this part. This is black here. This is cyan, blue here, and then this is black here. Versus in the question figure, I can versus from the reference figure 1 and 2, which is provided, and clearly see it's a black. So clearly, option C is wrong here. Next we look at the next part of difference that has happened. The another difference which starts happening is in this part. Okay, it is blue, cyan, yellow, cyan, and it is yellow, cyan here. What happens in that place? In that position which is given, we are given here yellow, cyan. So definitely option A is also wrong. Now we start looking at the comparisons that are there row by row between the option B and D. When you look at the option B and D, we then start finding the differences which happen, and it happens in, I'm just pointing it here between these 2 parts because it's red, that's why it's not seen. So let me change it between these 2 parts. In that case, lower one it's yellow, and then below that you have blue color, and then above that you have yellow. So it is yellow. This part will have yellow, this part will also have yellow, and this part at the bottom will have blue coming from here. So option B, which says yellow, red, blue together, is wrong. Correct answer is option D. Okay, so this is what I was talking about. The clues lies in the question itself. The clues lies in the option itself many a times. All right, we'll move to the next question. In the series given, the first is an equilateral triangle. Then this equilateral triangle becomes a square by rearranging the pieces, and the third becomes a regular pentagon without any rotation. Similarly, the fourth becomes a regular hexagon. Which of the option given therefore replaces the question mark? The clue here is we do not have to rotate anything. No rotation. Okay, that is our clue. So the question itself is telling you how to solve it. It says you can rearrange the pieces. It says you can rearrange the pieces. You cannot rotate the pieces. And what the pieces will become is also given in the question. First one, it's an equilateral triangle given as it is. Second one is actually a square. Third one that we are given is actually a pentagon. And the fourth one will become a hexagon. This is a square, a pentagon, and a hexagon. All right. Now, it is already given. So many clear instructions are there. How does this figure, the question then becomes, how does this figure come together to form a square? It comes together to form a square when the first part goes back in the front. It arranges itself here, and then it becomes a square. Next one, how does this become a pentagon? This piece goes again on top here, arranges itself in this position, and then the final piece comes on top of it, like this. Okay, it forms a pentagon like this. Now we have to look at that same rearrangement, the way the pieces are coming in the front and then arranging themselves. Which of these options will form a hexagon by that same method? With case of option A, what happens is these two pieces will come together, will join together like this itself, which is a wrong arrangement, because what we saw in this 2 and the third figure was the second piece was coming in front. So A is wrong. Now, with case of option B, what is happening? With case of option B, this piece actually may be happening, may get constructed in the back, on the side maybe, but has to be rotated. But here what we are given is rotation is not possible. So how do we get it together? But what we are given is you can rearrange without any rotation. So B, in case of B, these two pieces are somewhere at a clash with each other, because this piece has to come in alignment. So this edge and this edge has to come together in order for them to fit together, which is also not possible. With case of option C, this part attaches itself here. So the piece comes here. This part comes on top like this. And then finally the final piece attaches itself here. So we are not rearranging, we are still following the same pattern which is provided in the figure 2 and figure 3, the reference figure 2 and reference figure 3. And by following the same rules of rearrangement, where you keep on building up on the first piece works, and we are not even rotating. So correct option here is C. With case of D, these two pieces are at conflict because both the pieces gets organized like this. They are not connected by an edge, but they are connected by a point. So D does not work. So the correct answer is option C here. Okay. So this is a kind of question which also tells you how to look at, what to look at, and what is the pattern of organizing that yields the given figure. Because in this case, the instructions were so clear in the question. You have to rearrange the piece. No rotation is allowed. And what the pieces will become. What the pieces in the second figure will become, what the pieces in the third figure will become, and what the pieces in the final fourth figure will also become. So everything was given to you. All you have to do is crack how these pieces came together. Yeah? We'll move to the next one now. The final puzzle. P is a completed puzzle made out of 4 square pieces. It's a puzzle made out of 4 square pieces. If the 4 pieces are removed to play the puzzle again, which piece shown below will not, we are given here, will not fit into the final image? Which of these pieces will not fit into the final image is what is given to us. We are also given that this is made up of 4 square pieces. Okay. Now, one thing here one can do is one goes piece by piece by piece, or one literally starts breaking this into the actual pieces it will be divided into, which is by this grid. Okay. So this part will actually be divided into a grid like this. And then another grid like this. Now this is based on how the pieces are given here in the option, all right? So why am I doing this? Now, if you look at option A piece actually happens in this corner. This is option A piece, where you have a blue edge, a black and a white semicircle. A white semicircle, a black in between and a blue edge. Works. Orientation also works, not a problem. So A is fine. Option B, you need a black semicircle which is here, a white in between and a red edge happens here. So this part is option B. Option C, a white semicircle, a black in between and a blue edge, which needs to be rotated by 180 degree. So when you rotate, sorry, 180 degree. So when you rotate it by 180 degree, what happens? Why 180 degree? Because the white semicircle is facing here, versus in the question figure, we are given the white semicircle is facing the other edge on this side. And henceforth, I'm saying this needs to be rotated 180 degree. And that's where the clash happens, because when you rotate this 180 degree, the blue edge gets accommodated here in this much part. This is where your blue edge starts accommodating, and that's where the problem begins. Because in the question figure, the blue edge is actually happening on this inward edge and not to the upper side. So C is clearly the one which is wrong option. B is fine, not any issue. Now we'll just cross check whether option D fits in or not. So option option D is the one with a red edge and a black circle. A black semicircle, a red edge happens here, and red edge on the side, and then this black semicircle here. It's fine, not a problem. This, when rotated, you will get the red edge here and the semicircle that we are talking about comes here. So it's fine, not any problem. D is okay. So correct answer here is C, which will not fit. C is the only one which will not fit into the final puzzle. So now, if you notice, none of these questions were actually about difficulty. What we did was we tried to observe, we tried to see beyond what is given to you. We tried to crack the puzzle beyond the given instructions. They were not about difficulty levels, they were actually about what you are trying to look at. And frankly, good problem solving is not about thinking more. It's actually about how you see better, how you observe, start observing better. And when you start making that shifts, at that point in time, questions like these won't stop feeling random to you. So next time, when you start solving a puzzle, ask yourself, what am I actually looking at? What am I actually looking for? Yeah? Thank you. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much for your time.